Okay, it is November 19th, 2023. It's my birthday. And we're going to stop here. This is actually a protected outcrop. Now, you can hear the cars behind me. I don't know how long ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe less. This road right back behind Sarah used to be US 12. So US 12 used to be right against this outcrop. And it was terrifying. Like, you had to park like questionably or on the other side of all that, but they rebuilt it and now it's over there. So it's a nice quiet dead end here, and you can study the rocks as much as you want. I actually have an old video for me when this was still US 12. It's like literally right behind where Sarah's standing. But so it's easier now. But today we're going to talk about this. We are in the Baraboo syncline. We are what is called the South Limb. The South Limb are the gentle dipping parts of the Baraboo Quartzite. For those of you that heard me talk about the Baraboo before, the Baraboo Quartzite, it's Precambrian, it's Mesoproterozoic, we think, or you know, circa 1,600 or 1,500 million years ago it was deposited, and apparently it was a continental-wide, almost continental-wide thing. I mean, granted, North America, which Laurentia was a lot smaller back then than it is now, but a lot of people think the Cambrian is the first time we start to see massive, you know, regional sandstone deposits, and we don't. You know, a billion years before that we have them in the geologic record, and we know that basically from pulling detrital zircons. I was co-author on one of the papers that explains this. And this quartzite, we know now, was deposited at the same time as the Big Sioux quartzite up in Minnesota. The other purple quartzites, like the Flambeau, the Waterloo, all those ones in Wisconsin, they were all at the same time. I think there's one in Iowa. This even is present in Iowa, at least in the subsurface. And that was a huge sand sheet. And here, the southern edge of the continent, relative to modern south, wasn't that much further south than here. So yeah, like maybe 50, 100 kilometers further south would be the shoreline at that time that this was deposited, at the end stages of this thing's deposition. And this is mostly nearshore beach and fluvial sand and fluvial river deposits. Now, we're going to look at some structural geology here, but I wanted to start at the south end of the exposure because I want you to look at this and see what you can see. Now, some of you may be like, oh yeah, I see crossbeds. Now, you have to be careful with the Baraboo. There, you do get something similar to Leitzing rings, I think is how it's pronounced, where you get color banding in the rock due to groundwater movement. This is not that. This is actual cross. You can see them, the color, you can see the bedding planes, you can even see them weathering out. So you know you've got legitimate cross bedding here. Now, I can take measurements of these cross beds and well, I think that way would be the source direction, but that's not going to give me the regional structure. I need to find a relative bed set plane, you know, something on a bigger scale. And we have lots of them here. So you have your cross beds, and then you have your bed sets here. So these you can measure. Now you may be like, Steve, there's no real good plane to do that. You're right. And also you can tell just by looking at this stuff has been tilted, okay, to some amount. And we're going to go to that later. But how do I know this whole thing isn't turned over? You know, because obviously there was a mountain building event here. We know that now. And we think it might have been related to the Pickers and all those other ones. It might have been its own little thing. We can tell by using these crossbeds. These crossbeds are mostly planar. You can see, and you can see how they taper down on the bottom. Most crossbeds deposited by water, whether river or near shore marine, are going to taper near the bottom, and they're truncated at the top. So these probably would have been more like this, and they would have more of a lazy Z in this case, just a really vague Z. But they've been truncated off the top, but they still shallow out here. So we know younging is this way. So this bed set is younger than this bed set. So we know it's not overturned just from this. Now, we can get orientation from here if we had to. We do have a bedding plane exposure, but I'm going to show you how this works.